Hello and greetings fellow StarCrafters and welcome back to Game 2 between OGSMC and GGNaugrim. This map is going to be on Xel'Naga Caverns as the previous map, and actually the players are in the same colors. We have the red Protoss player, OGSMC, and then down here we have the blue Zerg player, GGNaugrim. Now, I do want to talk about the previous game just a little bit. Now, I'm not when I'm criticizing Naugrim, as I was talking about before, you know, he's still an extremely good player, and he did a great job macroing that game and able to get his drone count up high. It was just like constantly during the first sections of the game that he was able to build up his drone count, and then he was still able to hold off MC's little Sentry Stalker push, which really let him just kind of take control of the game and deal a lot of damage. But when it came to those big engagements, there were a lot of things that he really needed to improve upon. First of all, he needed to make sure his Broodlords had units under them at all times so that you couldn't just blink up with your Stalkers, and so that MC couldn't just blink up with his Stalkers and take shots at them. And, you know, there were a couple other things, like his opponent, you saw that Naugrim knew that his opponent, MC, had High Templars, which of course can feed back his infestors. So what he needed to do was, when you know that your infestors can get feedbacked, if you're still going to get infestors, what you want to do is fungal growth immediately. You know, fungal growth as quickly as possible, so that even if they feedback them, first of all, they don't necessarily kill your infestors just with a feedback because you've already used some of your energy, and second of all, that you actually have gotten the fungal growth off and you dealt some damage. There were a lot of situations where they all got feedbacked because he just wasn't paying close enough attention to those kinds of scenarios. And also, you know, he did a lot of pretty good harassment, especially near the end of it, but it would have been a lot more effective if he was able to spread it out a lot more. You know, we saw that group of Zerglings get dropped off and wait there for like 8 minutes. And, you know, like I'm saying, he's still a really good player, and it's really great that he's doing harassment. A lot of players won't even do harassment like that at all, but that doesn't mean that there isn't room for improvement. So when I'm critical, you know, it's critical for a reason. But we can go ahead and start talking about this game. We see the same beginning from GGNaugrim. He's actually going for gas into spawning pool. Meanwhile, MC is actually doing the same build as well. It looks like he's chrono boosting the gateway, and he's going to get 2 or 3 zealots, and he's just going to push out with those zealots. Now, I don't think that this build, or the style that MC is going, where he delays the cybernetics core in order to get zealots out faster and uses the chrono on the zealots, the chrono boost on the zealots instead of the workers, is super effective. The pressure, I guess, isn't super effective against the Zerg players if they decide to go decide to go pool first, like Naugrim was doing. And actually, Naugrim's going to be able to go ahead and spot this. If the Zealots move out, Naugrim will definitely know it. But it seemed to me that last game he almost forced the cancel on the hatchery. That was a pretty good push out, and he might be able to do the same again. But I think this build is even more effective against a hatch first kind of style build, in which the spawning pool comes out later and he doesn't get speed as quickly, so that the Zealots can do a little bit more micromanagement than they can against Speedlings, which of course can just always surround Zealots basically without any trouble. Now we do see a third unit instead of a third Stalker. We see a Sentry here, so it looks like MC is actually just getting 2 Zealots for Zergling protection, and is going to get a Sentry to kind of hold the ground as well, and isn't doing the same kind of pressure build as he was before. He might still push out at least a little bit, but it's not like, I don't think he's going to go try to force a cancel the hatchery. In fact, by the previous game, he was already attacking the hatchery. Of course, those were closer spawns than they are in Xel'Naga Caverns. So you know, it's a little bit of a different situation as well. So it looks like this is actually probably MC's opening into a 3-gate expand, if I had to guess. He's just going to go ahead and build lots of sentries. He's already got 2 more sentries queued up, and in the most recent patch they reduced the build time of sentries by 5 seconds, so it allowed them to be more effective as well. So I'm going to say most likely he's just going to go, oh wow, actually no, he's just going to get a Nexus right away. He's doing a 1-gateway expansion. Very ballsy on the part of MC. I really like this. It's going to be, and actually, this could be a problem. If Naugrim knows that there aren't 3 gateways, which he might actually know that, and there's another gateway going, and there's probably going to be a third going down as well, then Naugrim can actually just build roaches and kill MC. Most likely, he'll just be able to build a ton of roaches, move up, and just take MC out, because MC just won't have the unit production necessary to be able to deal with that many roaches. It remains to be seen. But we do see Void Rays coming out that'll be able to handle the roach problem absolutely nicely. So I eat my words just a little bit. So that was a good counter on the part of MC. I don't know. I don't think he saw the roach war. Let's go ahead and find it. He has not seen the Roach Warren. He might have guessed, though, that when his opponent scouted the 1-gate expand that he'd get a Roach Warren to try to push it, and actually we do see 8 Roaches coming out in the part of Naugrim, so he's going to go ahead and deal a lot of pressure here. I'm certain that this is 9 isn't at the point of like an all-in, but it's a really huge investment, and his economy is going to be really far behind if this isn't successful. And I don't think this is going to be successful because he's just going to have nothing to answer the Void Ray. There's going to be one Void Ray, and one Void Ray can handle an infinite number of Roaches because the Roaches can't attack it, and there's just no way he can deal with it because the only answers that Zerg have to Void Rays, but basically are either creep dependent or they're Mutalisks. Or I guess like Infestors or something, but stuff that's later tech, stuff that he doesn't have right now. He doesn't even have a lair, so there's no way that he'd be able to deal with it. Now the question is, so the attack won't kill MC. The question is whether or not the attack will deal enough damage that the fact that he didn't kill MC is going to be relevant or not. Like, right? Like, can he deal enough damage that the cost of this attack was worth it? Unfortunately, the Void Ray is already out, and he knows that, so he's going to go deal as much damage as possible. The Sentries, of course, are going to force field all of the entrances in, and Naugrim's just not going to have a lot of luck here. The Void Ray really should be focusing on the Roaches to make sure it can get a charge up going, and MC needs to control that just a little bit better. Great force fields, though. It looks like he's actually just going to go ahead and snipe the Nexus, and it looks like he's going to get it, too. Now, I would say, actually, he's just going to kill as many Sentries as possible now. He realizes his army's going to die, so he wants to kill as much of MCs as possible as well. And you see he's droning up in the background as well as getting a lair to deal with the Void Rays, so that's a really effective job, really good part on the part of Naugrim. And it looks like he was pretty effective. I'm going to say he's ahead of, he's behind on units. He's behind on units lost. However, he was able to take out the expansion, so that inflates the number a little bit, because it's only, losing a Nexus only counts 400 on the units lost tab, but what it does do is, okay, take out those little Zerglings little bit by a little bit, but what it does do is reduce their income by, how many ever workers were working there for a long time, so a lot of those numbers are not going to be reflected in the stats, and actually losing 2 Overlords there is kind of a big deal. Not a super big deal, it doesn't even supply block him, but it's a little bit of an issue. He is just getting Spore Crawlers now. He has 3 Queens. 3 Queens should be enough to be able to handle them. He wants to bring the 3rd one down here, though. And he also wants to make sure that they can't charge up. They're going to have 1 charge up on the Overlord, but they're not going to engage, just going to go ahead and back out. Smart move on his part. He doesn't want to lose those Void Rays. Void Rays are extremely expensive, and they're also his only defense. He might actually try to charge up on the rocks before moving in. Is that what's going to happen? Yep, looks like that's exactly what's going to happen. And what you can do is, once your Void Rays are all fully charged, you just move forward, attack it again, move forward, attack it again, move forward, attack it again. Yep, like that. Just to make sure they don't lose the charge, because they only lose their charge after 5 seconds of not attacking anything. It's not going to matter, though. There's 4 Queens there, and they have Transfuse available, so he's just going to go around, take out a couple of the Overlords. Ooh, and actually, I wonder if he's going to go... No, he's not going to go in again. I was going to say he might want to go in again, because he has 2 Phoenix that could pick up the Queens, to be able to deal with the Queens for their defense, but we do see a bunch of Hydros coming in, so that would have put an end to those maneuvers, as well as the Spore Crawlers, which are already set up outside of the base as well. It does look like that MC is moving in and even doing even more damage with the Void Rays, and the main thing that the Void Rays are doing right now is actually providing himself protection. He knows that his opponent isn't getting any more Roaches, and knows he isn't getting Zerglings, first of all, because he can see it, and second of all, because he is forcing him to get Roaches, and he knows that he's forcing him to get Roaches. Those Hydras are going to make short work of those guys. Those Void Rays need to get out of there real quick. That one's dead for sure. This one's going to survive because the creep ends, and the Hydras aren't able to keep up. Might be able to take out the Overlord, not quite, but the Phoenix can circle around at some point and be able to take it out. They do fire while moving, so they'll be able to successfully do that. And as all good Protoss players do, once you force your opponent in to get a lot of Hydralisks, you switch to Robotics, and if I had to guess, he's going to get a Robotics Bay next, right there. Come on, yep, there we go. And he's going to go ahead and get Colossus. Colossus, of course, is the natural counter to Hydralisk, because Hydralisk don't have that much health, and Colossus deal tons and tons of damage. And when I say tons, I mean absolute tons. And great job on the part of MC. He wants to make sure his opponent isn't sneaking an expansion again. We're going to go and follow these Phoenix because it's fun like that. Taking out some of the Zerglings that are holding the fence. He wants to be a little bit careful here. There's a lot of Hydralisks you don't want to run into. And actually, it looks like Naugrim's just going to go ahead and move out with this Hydralisk timing attack. Now, when you engage with Hydralisk off creep, you have to make sure that you have to make sure that you are going to win the engagement. Because if you don't win the engagement, especially with these queens too, you're going to lose your entire army because you cannot retreat with Hydralisk, at least not very effectively. Nice force fields, keeping his opponent's forces back. Meanwhile, the queens are transfusing. I'm not entirely certain why Naugrim decided that this was a good idea to move out like this. As I was saying, he needs to make sure. I think he thought that MC didn't really have much of an army because he invested so much. He saw that he invested so much in, in Void Rays, but he was two basing for a while and he got a second base up again. Like, it's not really that hard to suppose that he could be getting that many forces. So really, that was the units lost thing is gonna be way in MC's favor right now. Now MC. Yeah, actually, I would say MC's ahead right now. He's probably more harvester, about the same number of harvesters. Naugrim's only getting his third base now, which, third base, 3-base Zerg to 2-base Protoss, that's about even. Probably, yeah, it's about even, I would say. Maybe a little bit in the Zerg's favor. Not when their worker count is even, though. Only if the Zerg has a higher worker count. And this, yep, as I was saying earlier, the Phoenix can swing around and take out that Overload, which they just did. Wants to make sure not to take too much damage from these Hydralisks kind of skating around there, though. I'll go ahead and keep following them just because why not? Naugrim is taking the wow, and actually these overlords keep getting taken out here. Now, the other thing I'm kind of wondering, which I don't think I have the correct answer to, is why he decided to bring his queens with him on that all-in, or on that attack, on that push-out. I guess it was because the Hydralisks are slow, so you might as well bring the queens as well. I thought he was going to try to drop some creep with some overlords, and then use the queens to set up new creep tumors, and then you could have creep for your Hydralisk to fight on so that they can move faster. These Phoenix are just going to fly around, check to see that there is indeed a third going up. So I think, and then maybe when the Overlords got taken out, then that plan failed, and he decided to attack with the Queens anyway. The only other thing I could think of for why he would throw away so many such important units is that he was thinking that this was not basically like an all-in, like he was going to send all of his Hydras and his Queens to help take out whatever air units that MC had, and then just finish him off, basically just kill him right then and there. Now MC is definitely ahead in this game. He's ahead in supply, which is a definite advantage for the Protoss player, and he's going to move in, and he may or may not be able to take this hatchery out. I think most likely he will be able to take it out. Because the only real defense Naugrim has, that was a close to being perfect force field, but not quite. And the infestors were able to get out of there. MC is going to be a little bit more cautious and go ahead and disengage and just move over to this hatchery and take this hatchery out, which Naugrim will not be able to re-engage for. So that's going to get the cancel, and the little drone lives. And it looks like MC just wants to push out a little bit and take out these creep tumors. It's always good to manage and stop the creep because it gives a speed bonus, especially when your opponent has so many Hydralisks. It's always important to be able to deal with that creep. But it looks like Naugrim wants to engage. He's going to fungal growth.